In the fall of 2026, the Pentagon released 13 gigabytes of data to satisfy the world. But the one thing they didn't mention was that the release was designed to fail. It wasn't an act of transparency. It was a digital burial of a truth that defies the very foundations of our reality. While the public spent weeks squinting at grainy, monochromatic shapes drifting over the Atlantic, a small circle of analysts noticed what was missing from the drive. The high-definition telemetry, the multispectral sensor data, and the raw radar tracks from the incidents over the Pacific remained locked behind a level of classification that even most members of Congress cannot access. This wasn't a disclosure. It was a carefully orchestrated distraction, a digital smokescreen meant to satisfy the curious while the most unsettling evidence continued to gather dust in a windowless facility in Virginia. The 2026 files contain several videos that the Department of Defense claims are unresolved, but the insiders who have seen the unredacted versions tell a different story. They speak of the Crosspoint incident, a 40-minute encounter involving a carrier strike group and an object that appeared to move in and out of the visual spectrum. In the public version, the footage cuts off just as the object begins to rotate. In the classified version, the object reportedly doesn't just rotate, it expands, its geometry shifting in ways that defy Euclidean mathematics, before it simply ceases to be there. There is no splash, no heat signature, and no sonic boom. It doesn't move away, it just exits the frame of our reality. We are left looking at a void where something impossible used to be. A gap in the world that our science cannot bridge. The narrative of 2026 was supposed to be about clarity, yet the more data that is released, the more the discrepancies grow. There is a specific document within the dump, labeled File 88-Alpha, which contains a series of sensor readings from a high-altitude surveillance drone. The readings show an object traveling at Mach 20, making a 90-degree turn without slowing down. The laws of inertia dictate that any physical structure known to man would have been reduced to dust under those forces. Yet the telemetry shows the object remained perfectly stable, its internal environment seemingly unaffected by the violent maneuvers. The question isn't what these objects are, but rather, what kind of physics allows for a total decoupling from the forces of gravity and momentum? It suggests that our understanding of the universe is not just incomplete, but fundamentally mistaken. The atmosphere in the intelligence community since the release has been one of calculated silence. Those who once spoke of drones or foreign adversaries have grown quiet. The 2026 files make it clear that no known nation possesses the propulsion systems seen in these encounters. When a craft can travel from the edge of space to the surface of the ocean in less than 2 seconds, it moves beyond the realm of military capability and into the realm of the impossible. The Pentagon's official stance remains that these are unidentified anomalous phenomena, a phrase that serves as a linguistic shield. It is a term designed to protect them from having to admit that they are tracking things they cannot stop, cannot intercept, and cannot understand. It is a confession of helplessness disguised as a bureaucratic label. Deep within the 2026 release, buried in a folder of technical jargon, is a report on signature management. It suggests that these crafts do not reflect light or radar in a conventional way. Instead, they seem to warp the environment around them, creating a localized bubble that isolates them from the atmosphere. This explains the lack of a sonic boom and the blurred edges seen in every video. We aren't looking at the craft itself. We are looking at the distortion it creates in the fabric of space-time. This realization is what keeps the classified footage under lock and key. To show the public the clear, high-resolution images would be to reveal that our control over our own skies is an illusion, maintained only because these visitors allow it. The 2026 files also contain several audio transcripts from pilots who encountered these objects. The transcripts are heavily redacted, with entire minutes of conversation scrubbed for national security reasons. However, the fragments that remain are haunting. One pilot describes an object that seems to anticipate his movements, moving to his flight path before he even engaged his controls. This suggests a level of sensor integration or consciousness that transcends traditional technology. If the craft can read the intent of a pilot or the logic of a fire control system, then every weapon system we possess is effectively obsolete. This is the truth that the Pentagon cannot afford to let the public fully grasp, that we are not the predators in this environment, but the observers, watched by something that knows our next move before we do. There is a growing theory among those who have spent years tracking these releases that the 2026 files were a response to a leak that hadn't happened yet. By releasing a large volume of low-quality data, the government can claim they have been open and honest, making any future high-quality leak look like a fabrication. It is a preemptive strike on the truth. They give us the shadows on the wall so we don't look at the fire behind us. The UFO files are not a bridge to understanding. They are a barrier, a wall of noise built to drown out the signal of something far more significant. It is a masterclass in information management, providing just enough mystery to keep the media busy, while the core reality remains safely tucked away in the dark. The most chilling aspect of the 2026 release isn't what is in the air, but what is in the water. Several files mention trans-medium travel, documenting objects that dive into the ocean at hundreds of knots without slowing down. Sonar data from these incidents is conspicuously absent from the public release. Insiders claim that the Navy has tracked these objects moving at depths that would crush any known submarine, navigating the trenches of the Pacific with the same ease they show in the stratosphere. If there is a presence on this planet that has mastered the oceans as well as the skies, our claim to planetary dominance is a fragile myth. We are a species that lives on the surface of a world, unaware of the activity occurring in the depths and the heights above us. The 2026 Pentagon UFO files are a testament to the power of selective truth. They have provided enough information to keep the public engaged for years, while keeping the core of the mystery protected by layers of bureaucracy and need-to-know restrictions. The blurry videos are real, but they are the least interesting part of the story. The real story is written in the data they didn't release. The sharp, clear images of craft that don't have wings, engines, or heat signatures. The story is in the radar tracks that show objects appearing and disappearing at will, flickering in and out of our dimension like ghosts in a machine. The story is in the silence of the officials when asked if they have recovered any materials that didn't originate on this Earth. We are living in an era where the mystery has been institutionalized. The 2026 files are just the latest chapter in a long history of managing the public's perception of the unknown. By giving us a little, they ensure we don't demand everything. They have turned the most profound mystery in human history into a series of bureaucratic updates and unresolved sightings. But the data remains, hidden in the black sites and the encrypted servers, waiting for a time when the world is ready to see what is actually behind the blur. Until then, we are left with 13 gigabytes of questions and a sky that feels much more crowded than it did before. The objects described in the 2026 files do not follow our rules. They do not communicate, they do not show hostility, and they do not show interest in our borders. They simply exist, operating with a level of impunity that is deeply wounding to the ego of a superpower. Every time a pilot locks onto one of these crafts, the system fails or the object vanishes. It is a game of cat and mouse, where we are not the cat. The Pentagon knows this, the analysts know this, and the 2026 files are the way they tell us, without actually saying the words. It is a confession hidden in a data dump, a quiet acknowledgement that we are sharing our world with something that operates on a different plane of existence. There is a specific frequency mentioned in one of the sensor reports, a microwave emission that preceded the appearance of an object over a nuclear storage facility. This emission wasn't just noise. It had a structure, a pattern that suggested it was a form of data transmission. The report ends abruptly, with no analysis of where the signal was going or what it contained. This is the recurring theme of the 2026 release, a path that leads to a door that is already locked. They show us the signal, but they keep the translation. They show us the effect, but they hide the cause. We are given the symptoms of a global phenomenon, but the diagnosis remains classified. As we move further away from the 2026 release, the initial excitement has faded, replaced by a lingering sense of unease. The public has moved on to other crises, other news cycles, but the reality of those 13 gigabytes remains. They are a permanent record of our limitations. We have reached the edge of our understanding, and the 2026 files are the fence that has been built to keep us from looking further. The craft are still there, the sensors are still tracking them, and the government is still filing the reports into folders that the public will never see. The mystery hasn't been solved. It has merely been filed away. The true nature of the 2026 Pentagon UFO files is not found in the videos of blobs or tic-tacs. It is found in the quiet, methodical way the information has been segmented. If you look at the files as a whole, a pattern emerges. The government is not necessarily hiding the existence of these objects. They are hiding the extent of their interaction with them. There are hints of retrieval protocols and biological signatures buried in the footnotes of logistical reports. These are the words that carry the real weight. These are the details that suggest we are not just observing something from a distance, but that there has been a physical reckoning that the world is not yet allowed to know. The mystery of the 2026 files is not a question of if, but a question of how much. How much do they know? How much have they recovered? And how much of our current technology is actually a result of studying the things they claim not to understand? The dark thriller of disclosure is not about a sudden reveal of the truth. It is about the slow, agonizing realization that the truth has been right in front of us the whole time, hidden by those who promised to protect us. The 2026 files are not the end of the story. They are the moment the mask slipped, just for a second, before the lights went out again. In the final analysis, the 2026 release serves as a mirror. It reflects our own confusion, our own technological vanity, and our own fear of the dark. We want to believe that there is a simple explanation, a secret foreign project, or a classified domestic drone. But the 2026 data points away from the terrestrial and towards something that we cannot name. It points toward a reality where we are not the masters of our own airspace, and where the laws of physics are merely suggestions to those who know how to bypass them. The files are out there, but the real mystery is only just beginning. Hidden in the gaps between the frames of a redacted video. As the years pass, the 2026 files will be studied by those who refuse to accept the official narrative. They will find the anomalies in the timestamps, the gaps in the radar logs, and the inconsistencies in the witness testimonies. They will piece together the story that the Pentagon tried to redact, and what they find will likely be more unsettling than any blurry video. It will be the realization that we are sharing this world with a presence that is indifferent to our laws, our militaries, and our understanding of reality. The 2026 files were meant to be the final word, but for those who know where to look, they are only the first sentence of a much darker chapter. The silence that followed the 2026 release is the most telling part of all. There were no grand speeches, no global summits, and no change in defense posture, just a return to business as usual, while the objects continue to appear on the sensors of our most advanced ships and planes. The files are a monument to our inability to confront the unknown. We have cataloged the impossible, labeled it unidentified, and put it in a drawer. But the things in the sky don't care about our labels. They don't care about our gigabytes of data. They continue to move through our world like ghosts in the machine, leaving us to wonder what else is hiding in the shadows of the next release. We look at the 2026 files and see a puzzle with missing pieces. We are told the pieces don't exist, or that they were lost, or that they are too dangerous for us to see. But the shape of the puzzle is clear enough. It is a shape that doesn't fit into our world. The physics-defying craft, the silent witnesses, and the redacted telemetry all point to a singular, undeniable truth. There is more to our reality than we have been led to believe. The 2026 Pentagon UFO files are not a disclosure of what is out there. They are a disclosure of how much we are still being kept in the dark. And in that darkness, the mystery only grows, waiting for the day the smokescreen finally clears.